Writing the West. Stories and poems by Rick Stever. Read by Michael Messner and friends. Kit Carson. Kit Carson was 16 years old when he left home. He was small in stature, standing only 5 feet 4 inches and weighing 125 pounds, but he was tall in courage. Carson became a mountain man and traveled and trapped throughout the Southwest and California. But it was at a rendezvous on the Green River where Carson displayed the raw courage that would make him famous. A French-Canadian named Schunar attended the rendezvous, and according to Carson,
Schunar was a giant of a man, a loud-mouthed bully who made a practice of whipping every man he's displeased with, and that was nearly all of them. One day, after whipping several men, he announced, "Whipping Americans is like taking a switch to children." Well, I marched up to Schunar, and without mincing words, I just told him, I don't take such talk from no man. Now, if you keep on talking that way, I'm gonna rip your guts out. Well, Schunar said not a word as he wheeled and he jumped on the back of his horse and rode into the meadow in front of the camp. I grabbed the first arms I could get a hold of, my pistol, mounted, and galloped on out to meet the challenge. "Am I the one you're fixing to shoot?"
Schunar shook his shaggy head, but at the same time he was drawing his long rifle. 2 shots rang out so close together, bystanders swore there was only one. Schunar went backwards off his horse. Carson claimed,
"Schunar's ball passed my head, cutting my hair, and the powder burnt my eyes."
There are conflicting reports about what happened next. Some say that Carson finished the job, while others say Schunar begged for his life and was allowed to leave camp. The exploits of Kit Carson might never have come to the public's attention had it not been for a chance meeting aboard a Missouri River steamboat with John C. Fremont. Fremont hired Carson as a guide and wrote glowing reports about his prowess in the wilderness. Carson's exploits were recorded in a series of dime novels, and he became a legend in his own time. He died at age 58 in 1868 as a national hero. The newspaper. Almost 140 years ago, a teacher gave her pupils the assignment of writing an essay on the definition of a newspaper. A 12-year-old boy wrote the following.
"Newspapers are sheets of paper on which stuff to read is printed. The men look over the paper to see if their name is printed on it, and the women use it to put on their shelves and such. I don't know how newspapers come into the world, and I don't think God doesn't either. The Bible says nothing about editors, and I never heard nothing about one being in heaven. Well, I guess the editor is the missing link them fellers talk about. The first editor I ever heard of was the one that wrote up the flood. He's been here in town ever since. Well, some editors belong to the church and some try to raise whiskers, and all of them raise hell in their neighborhoods, and all of them are liars, at least all I know, and I only know one. Editors never die. At least I never heard of a dead one. Sometimes the paper dies and then people feel glad, but someone starts it up again. Our paper is a poor one. We take it so Ma can put it on the pantry shelves."
The boy concluded his essay by stating that his father hadn't paid for his subscription in 5 years and had no intention of doing so in the future. Trees. I go for a walk in a pine forest, stepping in and out of shadows into soft pools of billowy sunlight. The sharp needles reach to touch me. I brush them aside and continue forward down a well-worn path into the deep woods. Guardian trees tower over me, protect me, and I make myself a solid promise to never forget this feeling. Amazed when my world comes down to just shadows, sunlight, trees. The name. Solomon Trumbull started west over the Oregon Trail with the intention of claiming a homestead in Oregon and then sending for his family. A year passed, and his family did not receive any letters from him. During that year, his daughter married George Massacre, and shortly after the wedding, George informed his bride they would soon be moving to Oregon. They joined a wagon train, and for several weeks they traveled along the Platte River. After supper one evening, Mrs. Massacre completed her chores and decided to go for a walk. She walked a short distance, sat on a large flat rock near the river, and watched the sandhill cranes fly over. She listened to their strange, shrill voices, and as the sun began to set in a fiery glow of yellows and reds, she tried to imagine what Oregon must look like. She remembered her father and the things he had said, that it was always green and the soil was black as coal and the weather conducive to farming. The daydream ended as the sun tumbled from the sky. Mrs. Massacre started back for camp, but on the way she noticed the shoulder blade of a buffalo stuck in the ground, marking a grave. She could see writing on the bleached bone and bent to read the faded lead markings. There was a name, Solomon Trumbull, her father. Copper Penny. One winter day in 1910, 3-year-old Lawrence Johnson was playing on the floor. He found a penny, picked it up, looked at it, and then popped it in his mouth.
Lawrence, do you have something in your mouth?
His mother asked as she entered the room. Lawrence shook his head no and swallowed. The copper penny lodged in his esophagus. He coughed a time or two, and his mother turned him over her knee and patted him on the back, but he could not dislodge the penny. Mrs. Johnson held Lawrence on her lap and demanded to know,
What did you have in your mouth?
He lied and told her, Nothing. Several days passed, and Lawrence seemed to be having trouble swallowing. He was losing weight, and he had been rubbing at his throat so much that the skin was red and irritated. Well, Mrs. Johnson took Lawrence to a doctor. He poked and probed at the boy's throat before finally turning to Mrs. Johnson and asking,
Could he have swallowed something? Perhaps a coin?
The other day, I thought he had something in his mouth, but he swallowed it before I could see what it was. He coughed once or twice, but he never gagged or anything. I suppose he could have found a coin on the floor,
said Mrs. Johnson.
This could be very serious. I propose an operation. If we don't remove it, gangrene may set in and your son could die,
the doctor said. 2 surgeons removed the penny from Lawrence's throat. The operation was an unqualified success and was heralded at the time as one of the most unique operations in the history of medicine. You've been listening to Writing the West. The stories and poetry in this podcast are by Rick Steber and appear in books by him. Log on to www.ricksteberauthor.com to find out more. This program was produced by Michael Messner by permission of the author. Special thanks to Michael Tucker, Rachel Pulliam, and Art Shingler. Thank you for listening.